under pretty much attack with foreign investing, money laundering, fentanyl, drugs from Chinese gangs, leaving homes empty, creating artificial shortages, making homeowners wealthy overnight. And this is something, again, we've been very vocal. But today, over at Better Dwelling, they are reporting something very important here. And I kind of want to cover this because this ties into why we are here today. We are here today because of money laundering. And I've been telling you guys everything from our food to the sickness to, why they had to pull the trigger on the pandemic, what all this stuff they've done is because it's money laundering. And this is why we're here. The war in Ukraine, SPX, is that SP, whatever that was, that digital currency, whatever that was, investor, all that stuff is all money laundering. So 2 of Canada's largest banks hit with anti-money laundering fines. I'm actually shocked because I think in the province of British Columbia alone, there's over $220 billion laundered in the one province in Canada. That's why a tear-down house that you could buy in Alabama for $35,000 is like $2 million in Vancouver, right? So there it is. Canada's financial crime watchdog appears to have woken up this week. FINTRAC announced that they have fined 2 of the country's biggest banks for anti-money laundering (AML) non-compliance, sampling just a small number of transactions. So they went over a few. So what they did was they scratched the surface, right? Just like the Royal Commission did in Australia when they did that investigation. All they did was scratch the surface, right? Remember Westpac in Australia? We were covering, they had 26 or 21 million or 26 million money laundering breaches. Not $26 million laundered. 26 million money laundering breaches in less than a year. And we covered that here. And I got threatened for that. I actually got threatened for making that video, right? So, sampling just a small number of transactions, the agency found serious gaps in reporting procedures that may have allowed a dodgy money slip through the system. And again, it's not the Portuguese, the Iranians, the Russians. It's basically allowing Chinese foreigners to take us over, right? 2 days ago, FINTRAC announced it fined RBC over the lack of administrative compliance. The agency hit the bank with $7.5 million fine on November 3rd, 2023 in relation to a routine audit they conducted on their books, on their 2022 books. Out of 130 cases chosen for review, the agency found 16 failures to allow AML procedures. To follow AML procedures, RBC has been hit with fines for the following issues: failure to submit suspicious transaction reports when there were responsible grounds to suspect that the transactions were related to money laundering offenses, right? And then what RBC wants to do is they want to keep that Vancouver model in place. Bring your money in. We don't ask you any questions. During the 2010 Olympics in Canada, they had that money laundering, bring your money in and we don't care where you get it from. But if you're a Canadian and you buy a house and you live in it, you have to prove it's not money laundered that you bought your house with. And then if you buy a second house, you have to live in it for 2 years before you're allowed to rent it out. So that's what's happening here. Failure to provide information in the prescribed form and manner in suspicious transaction reports, and failure to keep written policies and procedures up to date. FINTRAC typically uses tiered systems for determining the size of penalty: minor $1 to $1,000 per violation, serious $1 to $100,000 per violation, and very serious $1 to $500,000 per violation by an entity. To get a $7.5 million penalty for 16 incidents appear to require some reporting issues. So I wanted to bring this up, and it goes on to say, FINTRAC has expressed concerns about the gaps of the AML reporting procedures at financial institutions. They notably conducted cases where it found a family had moved $167 million through Canadian banks, even getting mortgages without setting off alarms. So this is not that it's Canadian people doing this laundering. It's actually Chinese people. And here it is, folks. We've been warning you. Now let's go into our channel time machine so I could show you guys. Canada's now China, as money laundering and fentanyl pours into Canadian shores via China 2 years, 10 months ago. Money laundering, forcing Canadian middle class into homelessness, sold out to the highest bidder. Canada will be in a recession without money laundering. Canada's GDP needs money laundering 4 years, 8 months ago. Money laundering destroying Home affordability in Canada, worst in almost 30 years. Toronto is the worst 6 years, 10 months ago. America's catching up to Canada, money laundering, CCP. So we were talking about Amerifornia, where America now is catching up with the Biden selection. Toronto needs more money laundering. Vancouver model, home prices slip down, inflation kicking in 6 years ago. Look at the title. Toronto housing on life support needs more money laundering. Canada is under attack. The Great Canadian Takeover. CCP money laundering. Rest in peace, middle class. 7 years, 8 months ago. And major bankruptcies has had nearly half of Canadians report being worse financially than a year. Why? Because of money laundering. Canadians are losing to money laundering. BC housing taxes could put recent buyers underwater 5 years ago. Money laundering loophole. Province OK's rent-to-own program to help aid foreign buyers tax. Money laundering by foreigners destroying housing affordability 4 months ago. Park your money in Canada. Chinese gangs laundering money and shadow flipping and destroying Canadian futures 6 years, 6 months ago. So I wanted to bring this up. It keeps going on and on. That's just Canadian money laundering. You type in Australian money laundering on our channel, American money laundering in America, money laundering in New Zealand, money laundering. It's crazy. And this is by plan to destroy us. This is why we are being destroyed. This is why they had to pull the trigger on the pandemic. This is why our food prices are high. This is why we can't afford our rents. It's because of money laundering. Woo! But no one listened to me. Imagine Joe Rogan said that 10 years ago. Oh my God, they have a statue of him right beside the Statue of Liberty for calling this out and pointing this out when it mattered. But they bring things up when it doesn't matter anymore. This is the problem we're having. And that's why I'm barely having 20 people watching this live stream right now with 30,000 subscribers. I didn't even run this live stream on Facebook with almost 200,000 followers between 2 pages, 200 plus thousand followers between 2 pages because I can't get one person watching me live. So